Hello, my name is Quinn, and I am the mezzo-soprano resident artist at Utah Opera, and welcome to Lesson 4 on Characterization. We're going to do this in a few parts today. So part 1, I'm going to give you some basics on how to physicalize your emotions and to communicate those. Part 2, we're going to go through the song line by line and really figure out your story and what you're communicating exactly. And then in part 3, I'll give you some more tools to practice at home. So let's start with part 1. First, we're going to, some of you watching at home might already have done some acting classes, or maybe you've been in a musical or done some acting before, and that's great. But I think even if you are at any level, it's so important to go back to the basics. So I'm going to give you just a few basics. It can sometimes be really hard to figure out. For me, at least, it was always really hard for me to figure out how to take this emotion that I felt and show other people and make them understand what I was feeling. So really quick, that's the whole point, right, of being an artist, is communication. And that's what I think is so special about singing. Sometimes we think of opera as being like the big horns and the lady with the braids and just standing there shouting, basically. But opera is actually about these really amazing stories. And this Italian song has an amazing story in it, too. So we really need to figure out how to bring that story alive. It's just like any other acting in a musical or in a play or on screen. So let's first get some basics here. First of all, when I talk, I have my glasses on because I can't really see very well without them. But when I sing, I take them off so people have access to my face. I put my hair back like this so that because your facial muscles are the things that are really going to be the key to this communication, right? Your body language is part of it, but your facial expressions are so important. So if you have any glasses or hair that like comes in your face in some way, that might be good to kind of trim down or take back so that people have access to all of those facial expressions. So I'm going to keep these glasses off while I show you all this stuff. If you haven't watched our warm-up videos, please go watch those because I think they're really helpful for singing in general, and also because they talk about posture. But as a brief review on posture, it's so important to have good posture when you're communicating. If you're kind of scrunched over like this, your heart isn't as open to communicating with your audience. So good posture, we want to be having a really strong base in our feet and our ankles, and you want to have your knees like nice and springy, so not locked, not like loose and jello-y, but just nice and like ready for some action. Your hips kind of stack directly over your knees. Your shoulders stack over your hips, so you're not leaning forward or leaning back. Your back is nice and tall. Your spine is elongated, so you're not arching your back or lifting your shoulders, but your shoulders are nice and loose. Your back is nice and tall, and your head kind of balances on top of all of that, on top of your spine. So we don't want you to be lifting your chin way too much or doing this or anything. You want to have a nice, even gaze. So once we've got posture, we're going to pick a spot on the wall. This might seem a little strange or counterintuitive to pick one spot on the wall that's ahead of you, basically on the horizon level, maybe a little higher, and maybe like the height of a doorway, perhaps. So you're going to pick that spot, and you're going to keep looking at that, and you're going to send all of your emotions to that one spot. That seems a little strange, maybe, but it actually is so much more effective to have your eyes focused on one spot, maybe two spots, maybe we choose another one later, but to have your eyes focused really brings the audience in. If your eyes are kind of darting all around or looking at audience members, that can make them uncomfortable, and it can also be really difficult to read your facial expressions. So I suggest finding one spot on the wall, and maybe if your emotion changes or if the scene changes, we look at a different spot, but generally we're going to stay with just the one spot. And on this wall, so maybe choose a blank wall, because on this wall you're going to like make an entire movie of what scene is happening. So you're going to look there and you're going to see what the movie is that you are creating, and you're going to be in that scene. So once we've got our posture, once we've got our spot on the wall, we're going to talk about facial expressions and body language and gestures, which are really important tools for communicating what we are feeling and emoting. So your facial expressions expressions are where most people will look for your emotion, right? So you should practice in a mirror or videotape yourself and see how you can move your face to look in different emotions. And that sounds kind of contrived and weird, but I promise it's really hard to know that without watching yourself. So here are a few tips. Using your eyebrows is really important. You can use your cheeks and your mouth, and see right there, just moving my mouth made it look like a completely different emotion, right? So if we want to look upset, guilty, I use my eyebrows. We don't want to have a lot of forehead tension, obviously, but we're trying to communicate here. So using your eyebrows, using your eyes is really important too, and really manipulate your face, right? So choose a few different emotions like happy, sad, guilty. Maybe we'll choose some more when we go through the text and really dig into that, and really practice that without any words or anything. Just go happy. I lift my eyebrows, my cheeks go up, my lips go up, my eyes start like sparkling, right? If I'm looking guilty, I'm like, ooh, there's some nose, there's some eyes, like my eyebrows are doing stuff. I feel really bad. And you can make that emotion happen even if you're not feeling guilty on the inside at this moment. It's important to be able to know how to move your face to look like that. Okay, so another important part are your body language and gestures and stuff. We don't want to use too many gestures. You don't want to be like waving your hands around while you're singing. So we have our tall posture, right? We can maybe take a step every so often. You don't want to be shifting back and forth on your feet or taking a lot of steps. That can be really hard for people to interpret what you're feeling. And you mostly want to use your arms and your gestures and your body in really important ways. So even though eventually, if you are really talented at acting, you can do this without planning it, I would suggest if you're new to this that you should plan where to put those gestures. So if there's a really important word in the song, you can put your hand on your heart, you can reach out, like if you're talking to somebody, you can put your hand up in a really important gesture, like this is what I believe. You can point, you can do stuff that really emphasizes that this is a really important word, this is a really important emotion. And of course, we want it to look natural and real, but when you're first starting out, it can be hard to make those things look natural and real, so it's okay if it doesn't right away. Again, I wouldn't move around a lot. You kind of want to keep your stance pretty grounded. That's the word. And if you think another word is really important, maybe you take one step. Maybe you step forward. Maybe you step back. Like, I don't know what to say, So use all of those things sparingly and mostly rely on your facial muscles, I would say, for your characterization. So now that we've got those basics, we're going to go through the translation of this song, Caro mio. And it's a really beautiful translation. And the thing that's so cool about song, like an art song like this, is that we get to make up the story. So it can be whatever you want that goes with the text, basically. So this is why it's so important for you to have done lesson 3, the translation, and really working on your Italian because of this communication, right? Communication is the most important part of this song, I think. It's really important to get all those basics done so that you can communicate. So we are going to look at this translation, and I want to just make a quick note that you might notice in your copy of Caro mio that there is English underneath, written underneath. We're singing it in Italian, and in your score there might be some English written underneath, and that is not an exact translation. So let me just say that again. That is not a real translation. That is a poetic translation that somebody made up a really long time ago that they thought would go well with the song, but it is not exactly what all of those words mean. So that's why it's so important to know exactly what those Italian words mean and translate them word for word. And also get, maybe look up a translation, just put in Caro mio translation and just see the whole song kind of written out for you. So once you've written that in, I always write it in my music above each of the words. So Caro mio I would write dear my beloved, and then maybe above that I would write my dear beloved, because we don't say dear my beloved. So once you've done that, which you've already done, but I'm just reinforcing what Addison already said, we are going to break this down line by line. And this is another reason why it's so cool to have this translation, is because now we can really communicate each word. We're not just communicating some kind of large concept of love or something. We're really specifically saying each thing. Similar to if you were singing a song in English, you would know what each word means and you would be able to communicate those. You wouldn't just be like, this is a song about love, so I'm going to look loving all the time. You would know what those words mean and really communicate a different emotion on each word almost. So that's why we need to know all the Italian. You need to have that in your head too. When you're singing Caro mio, you should know that means my dear beloved, even if you maybe don't speak Italian fluently. So let's just quickly go through the whole translation. Caro mio ben, my dear beloved, credimi almen, believe me at least, senza di te, without you, languisce il cor, my heart languishes. That's so beautiful. Then the second verse, which you've already translated. Il tuo fedel, your faithful one, sospira OGNOR, always sighs. Cessa CRUDEL, tanto rigor, cease cruel one, all of this punishment, all this harshness. So if you don't have that written in, I would suggest doing that now, making sure that you have that exact translation correctly in there. P.S. It can be kind of hard to translate things when you're first starting out, so if you didn't get it exactly right the first time, it's okay. You'll get better as you keep working on it. So that song, what does that mean? Like, what's the overarching message of this song? You're talking to a person that you really love, my dear beloved. And what are you trying to say to them? You're trying to say, I love you so much that if you're gone, my heart is dying, is languishing and sad and depressed. That's like a really strong statement. Then the B section, the second verse says, your faithful one is always sighing. Please stop being so mean to me. Please stop this punishment. So what does that mean? You can interpret this text in a number of ways, and you get to kind of decide what story you want to tell and what resonates with you most. So if you have an experience where you've had to try to convince somebody of your love, maybe you draw on that, or maybe you haven't had that, but you can imagine how that feels. So here are some examples of what I might want to choose Caro mio ben being about. So it could be that you cheated on your person, that you cheated on your partner, and they're like really mad at you now, and you have to be like, no, I'm so sorry, like, no, I really do love you. Like, please stop it. Please stop being mean to me because it was a mistake, etc. You know what I mean? You can fill in the blanks there. Second thing, maybe you really love this person and they're like breaking up with you for whatever reason. Maybe they fell out of love and you're like, no, like, I really love you. Like, please come back. Like, why do you keep ignoring me? Maybe they're just ignoring you. Maybe it's a crush and you're singing to them in your bathroom and they're not actually there. You're like in the shower sad about this person and wish that you could say this to them, or you're writing them a letter that you know you're not going to send. And you say, oh, I wish you would like pay attention to me, right? Like, you are so amazing and I love you so much, but you are like gone. You like keep ignoring me, and without you, my heart is so sad. I wish that we were together. Here's another one. I'm giving you a lot to choose from. So you can make up your own, or you can choose one of mine if you want. Here's another one. You guys are together, and it's like a long distance thing, right? They had to move away, and you're like, oh, my heart is so upset without you, and like, you don't talk to me enough. Like, it's not going well because you are doing these things to me, and I'm trying to be a good partner, but you aren't like helping me out here, and you're not communicating. So maybe that's the harshness. Maybe that's the punishment that they're doing, that you're like, please stop being so harsh to me. Please stop. Tanto rigor, etc. So choose an example that resonates with you, but also feels really real and dramatic. Like, this is a really dramatic text to be like, my heart is so depressed without you. Like, that's a big thing to say. So you have to choose the situation that feels real, but also feels like something that you would want to like write a song about and like sing it to your person that you're talking to, right? It's really important. Okay, so now that we've thought about all of those options, we're going to choose one. What should we choose today? Let's choose that you cheated on your person. Ooh, I hope you don't do that. But if you do, maybe you can sing them this song. Okay, so let's go through line by line and really figure out how we want to physicalize that. If you choose something else, you can figure out how to physicalize that yourself. But let's try this one first. So you're saying, oh, by the way, your facial expression and your acting starts the minute the song starts, not the minute you start singing. So when the piano starts playing or when your accompaniment track starts playing, you are already in the scene. You have already started emoting. So why is there a piano introduction? We have to figure out, there are a lot of questions we have to answer as we're figuring out how to do characterization. So the piano is playing and you are, why aren't you singing yet? Maybe you're trying to figure out what to say. Maybe you're scared of saying what you have to say. So choose a reason for that. So the pianist is playing and you're like maybe we're trying to figure out what to say. So you're like, I really messed up. You have to have something going on in your head that's called a subtext or an inner monologue that you have going on in your head that is exactly what you're thinking or what you would say out loud if we could hear that on the inside. So so the piano's playing and you're going, oh man, I messed up. What do I say to this person? What did she just say? Or what did they just say to you to make you feel that way? That you're like, that they were like, you cheated on me and we have to break up. Like, I don't think you love me anymore. And then you're like, oh gosh, what do I say? So we take this time to do, what do I say? What do I say? So how does that look if you're like trying to think of something to say? Let's figure out our facial expression. Maybe you're like, oh, I feel so guilty. Maybe you are like, oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting her to say that. I didn't think we were going to break up. I'm using the pronoun her, but you can choose whatever pronoun you want. So sorry about that. You can try to figure out what to say and you're like thinking and stuff. So there's a lot of consternation on my face. So figure out what that looks like for you. Then we say, Caro mio ben, my dear beloved. You have to start out by making them known that they are loved, right? My dear beloved, Caro mio ben. You're still feeling guilty, but like loving. You want to be like, Caro mio ben, I still love you, right? So your face shows love, maybe eyebrows are up. Credimi almen, please believe me, just this one thing. Believe me at least. Believe this one thing. So you really are earnest. You're like, please believe me. Maybe that looks different for you than it does on my face. We all have different faces, but figure out how that looks. Like, please believe me. Say those words in English, say those words in Italian, and feel what that feels like on your face. Senza di te, without you, you are the most important thing. Without you, languisce il cor, my heart languishes. So we have to color each of those things as a different thing. It's not all just like, I love you. It's like, my dear beloved, please just believe me this one thing. Without you, my heart languishes. It's 4 different things. So change each one just a little bit, okay? So you've sung that part. Then we say Caro mio ben again in the song, right? And we're going to repeat it. Why are you repeating it? This is another question we have to answer. Why are you repeating it? Because she didn't believe you, right? You said this thing and your person was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I know you cheated on me. So you're like, oh God, no, but really, like I have to emphasize that I really do. Caro mio ben, without you, my heart languishes. And really lay it on as hard as you can. Then we have another piano interlude, right? Maybe she turns away, she tries to walk away, and you're like, oh gosh, like what do I do here? So what you have to say something new. You already repeated what you said. She didn't believe you twice. So you have to say something new. Il tuo fedel, your faithful one. You're calling yourself a faithful one. Maybe in this situation of cheating, that's kind of rude. But you can say, your faithful one, il tuo fedel, sospira OGNOR, is always sighing, right? I'm always sad and sighing and crying. Sospira also is in a word in Italian that can kind of mean like sobbing and crying, like sighing, but in a really, really dramatic way, because Italian is dramatic. So you're talking about your faithful one always is sighing. Cessa, CRUDEL, why are you walking away from me? Cease, cruel one, all of this punishment. So you think maybe in this situation where you cheated on them, that you have already done your penance, you've already said sorry, you already stopped cheating on them, and you're like ready to recommit, and they're like, no, I'm breaking up with you. So I'm putting this all into such modern terms. Of course, this song was written like 400 years ago, but things can happen like that in that day and age too. So it's just a universal, opera's universal language. So anyway, so you get the idea. Each one of these things you have to really interpret for yourself and create a story. And so that will make it so much easier for you to figure out what facial expressions to use. I'm not going to tell you what facial expressions to use or what story to choose. You can make up a new one that you think works better for you. You can envision yourself 400 years ago being a whatever type of person that you might have been at that time, and be that person. That can be really fun, to be a different character other than yourself. But you really need to, like, the point of all this is to really settle the story in, okay? Then you are going to have to figure out what facial expressions go with that. So now that you've developed your story and you really know what all of these things mean, here are these practice tools. This is part 3, practice tools. And a huge tool that we have at our fingertips, especially as we are all not going to school and stuff right now, is the internet. So I assume you know how to use the internet. So go on there and look up a lot of different singers singing this song. You need to watch videos of other people. You can just listen to how their voice sounds, but you also, for this particular part, the characterization, it's really great to watch how other people will physicalize this song, especially opera singers who have been trained for a long time. So you can do that. Also, other practice tools, like I said, look in the mirror. I would say all of these words to yourself in English and then in Italian over and over again. You can have a little cheat sheet in front of you if you don't have the song memorized, but you can have that and really like say different line readings. Try out different scenarios, different stories that you're trying to tell. Maybe you choose one and you're like, this isn't really working for me. It doesn't really resonate with me. Make something else up. Do something different and see if that works better, right? This is an important story that you're trying to tell, so you're in charge of the story. Then, after you've said all of those words over and over and over again, videotape yourself. Maybe singing them with the characterization, maybe just saying it with the characterization. The difference between looking in a mirror and watching yourself on video is a huge difference. So you can take your phone or your computer or whatever you have access to and videotape yourself trying out different types of characterization. A quick note. It's hard to watch yourself on video sometimes, but it's super helpful, and nobody else is going to see it. So it's a really great learning tool for you to be able to be like, oh, I thought I was doing this, but it actually looks like I'm not doing that. I'm doing this instead. So you can really take that, learn how your face moves, how your body moves, and what that communicates, because we don't really pay attention to that too much in our regular lives. Thanks for being here with me today, and I hope lesson 4 was helpful. I know it was kind of a long lesson, but I think this is actually one of the most important things to me, is figuring out exactly how I'm communicating stuff. So if you have any questions or anything that you're like confused about with all of these lessons, or anything at all actually, except for if it's not opera related, make it opera related or singing related, we would love to answer it. This is our job right now, is to answer your questions and to do education initiatives. So please write us at our Ask a Singer page, and we promise we will write you back. And if we get enough of the same question, we might make a video about it so that it helps more people. Anyway, thank you guys, and I hope this was helpful. Tune in next week for lesson number 5 with Taylor putting it all together.